517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.
Hey, this is the Star Wars Squadrons podcast. It's been a while since I did an episode. This is season 3, episode 1, and I have members of a team with me that I've been wanting to have on here for so long. I'm glad to have Baywatch on, Brandon, Disco, and coming back to the podcast again, Alex on the pod. Thank you for coming back. First of all, why don't you guys say hello? Let's start with Brandon. Say hi to everyone.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Thank you for being on. Disco, say hello.
Hey, Time Bomb. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for being here. And Alex, welcome back again.
Thank you for welcoming me back. It's good to be back on the podcast. Second time now.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, I haven't been doing them, and, the game kind of slowed down. We were kind of talking about, you guys had called this sort of the golden age of comp. It kind of slowed down a little bit, but I had wanted to do an episode with you guys, and, it seems like things are they're ramping up again. I feel like the comp scene is kind of growing again at this point. We're doing the modifiers tournament. Things are kind of picking up again. So I really wanted to kind of have you guys on here. I am curious, because it was been probably almost a year ago, maybe a little less, that Baywatch started. How did Baywatch begin? Maybe I'll ask you, Alex. How did it come from randos to Baywatch? How did it rise? You guys tell me.
So there was originally, how many members of OG Randos? About 7 or 8 members of OG Randos. And then throughout comp, we then recruited Jester and A1. So I think it went up to about 9. And then, but yeah, like some of them were kind of like subs, and they were okay with that because they couldn't commit as much time to it. But then I think they got to a point where they wanted to play more and more. And so they started their own sort of team. I think it was 3 or 4 of them. Started their own little team, asked around, got a few players, and then formed a little team. And it was kind of, just seen as a little friends team that want to play to have fun. They also got Shubin, who was part of Jester's old team, VS. So it was kind of, and then Six, who was another part of Jester's old team. So it was kind of a mix of randos and VS, because we stole Jester from them. And it just went from there. And then they recruited. I don't know. Disco was recruited. I don't know how long in Disco was recruited. Quite early on, weren't you?
It depends on when you start the timeline, because I was kind of late coming into competitive, but I want to say it was maybe late February, early spring of last year. It hasn't been too long, but yeah, it was already a well-established team as far as skill level before I came in.
Oh yeah, the skill level was definitely there for you guys before you were even doing comp stuff. Because I remember definitely when we did the same SEL play-in. I remember you guys beat us and you guys made it in. That would have been for season 2?
2.
Yeah, so that would have been in like February-ish. So there was definitely comp starting around then. But I don't know if you guys have been in the Cal Cups really in that first half very much, from what I remember.
I think Baywatch did a Cal Cup, and they did the Op Ace, the second Op Ace, because the first Op Ace, well, there was a very, very first one, which was like content creator.
Yeah.
And then there was there was an America only one.
Yeah.
And then there was the second one, which wasn't American only; it was everyone.
That's right.
And Baywatch was in that one.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun. I forgot about that tournament too. That one was before the Twin Suns one. There was that one. Interest was so high in the game then. People coming in and doing tournaments.
$20,000 will do that.
Yeah, I guess so. But Twin Suns, you guys were in. Were you in that one as well? Would you play in the Twin Suns, Disco?
I That was just before I came onto the team. So right after Twin Suns, because my actual starting point actually was when A1 was on his way out. Because I only like spoke with him briefly on the team when Baywatch was considering me, and they were just like, eh. So I would say right after Twin Suns is probably my starting point for Baywatch.
So it seemed like as well because Baywatch, like I mean, I feel like you guys. I'm trying to think like in context to Orange. I feel like you guys were kind of a step ahead of us, but you also kind of went from being there to like at the top level by the final. You guys qualified. You were having success in all those Cal Cups. What do you think it was like the interplay between Baywatch and Randos that helped you guys get better? What do you think helped you guys get to that next level in that time frame? Was there any stretch you guys were doing at Randos and Baywatch that was ahead of everyone else? What do you guys think?
I wouldn't say quite ahead. From when I came into Baywatch, they were, as you said, they were already well established. They were typically making it to day 2 on tournaments, and
top 8, even pushing top 4s. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what changed was because we played so similarly to the Randalorians. That we got as far as it did, but then once it started hitting a snag, we're like, okay, we can't really, there's no real breakthrough as far as like getting to the top 4 or whatever. That's when we kind of started deviating from what was the Randalorian strategy at the time, because basically we were doing their strategy, just not as well. And so when we kind of took an honest look at ourselves, and understood that, hey, Six and I, we can't be Jester, or, Shub, and who was it? I think it was Yalia at the time. We can't, we can't be Alex or Ziggy or whatever. And we mean that in the best way. Like, we all bring something different to the table. But we kind of understood that, and we kind of looked around to see like what was working for other teams, and we compare that with our strengths of the team, with our team, and then we kind of implemented basically what is, I don't know, essentially the meta today, as far as the 2-2-1. And then when we brought on more players, we started experimenting with all these different strategies. But a lot of it kind of goes to the benefit of just looking at other teams, looking at what worked for them, and just workshopping it.
I think of your TIE Fighter a lot, just because you're so deadly in it. You do a lot of damage. When did you start playing the TIE Fighter, Disca?
I started playing the TIE Fighter shortly after I was recruited by Baywatch, because I was a filthy A-Wing main and Interceptor main when they first brought me on. And at the time, like I was good and I was effective, but I wasn't really doing any cap ship damage. And as time went on, when cap ship damage and ion damage became so important to the game, they're just like, hey man, we need you to learn X-Wing. We need you to learn either like Defender or TIE Fighter. And then when we started kind of gravitating towards the ion torpedo, that's kind of what sealed the deal as far as sticking with the X-Wing, sticking with the TIE Fighter. As much as I would love to fly Defender, like I can absolutely fly that, but what was best for the team is what I wanted to fly.
And no repair kit either, so mad respect.
Yeah, well, the luxury of TIE Fighter is just it has a bunch of hull for how evasive it is, so you get away with a lot.
Do you shunt charge your TIE Fighter, or are you what's your setup for it? I'm curious now.
Yeah, absolutely shunt charging. I have the luxury of being on the East Coast, so shunt lag isn't as big of an issue as it is if I were in the UK or even Australia. I know a lot of those players, that's half the reason why they play Defender or whatever, because that's just such a hassle. But we all make our decisions as far as what we think is best. But that's not the only way that you can fly a TIE Fighter. I do know that Submo and recently Velian, they understand the jet TIE fighter, you just fly it like an X, and it does just fine. But yeah, I do, in fact, do shunt charging. That was something that was an easy transition from Interceptor to TIE fighter, because they fly very similarly when it comes to power mechanics.
Do you slam on your TIE fighter, or is that too much?
No, I use microthrust.
Microthrust, okay.
Excuse me. I use microthrust. Yeah, because it's the best. I don't know what to tell you. It kind of offsets the.
I agree with that, to be honest.
Yeah, it offsets the movement disadvantage in case you do need to fly normally, which is a rarity these days. But the fact that it just kind of covers the weaknesses of reinforced hull at times is really to the benefit. I mean, slam definitely has its place, but
I know it's rare.
It just feels
it's rare on for sure.
Yeah,
but it's more viable than. It's cool. What I think is cool about the TIE fighter is that jet, microthrust, and slam are all viable options. I feel like it's one of the few ships that there's many options for engines that can work.
Yeah, you can definitely get away with a lot with the TIE fighter, and there's really no wrong. Well, there is wrong answers to TIE fighter engines, but when it comes to the main three, which is slam, jet, and micro, like you can't go wrong with any of those. It really just depends on how you fly, how you shunt charge, like what you're most comfortable with. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with any of those three.
So I'm trying to think of the timeline. We're at sort of leading up to the Cal Cup finals then. So Brandon, you were playing with randos still at that point, I think, kind of. You hadn't quite transitioned over yet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I switched over to Baywatch after season 3 of SCL. After that was kind of like the last hurrah for us. We obviously finished Cal Cup, but everyone kind of, for the most part, wanted to go their own ways, I guess, or they had other stuff in their life. Alex stayed around. Vix plays around a little bit, but and they all chat a little bit. But
I mean, that's something that I feel like kind of fell under the radar a little bit, just the timing of it. Like randos, you guys won, that season 3 SEL final, right? Like, what do you guys want to talk about that win at all too? I feel like because it was right around the Cal Cup as well. But I mean, you guys still had that season was very competitive with CA Gold and IG in that one. What are your thoughts of that season, Brandon?
I had a really good time with that. I think we went in knowing that it would probably be the last SCL that Rando's Beskar would play as. But I had a really good time with it. Always had a big fan of SCL. It was a good time. Alex, do you have anything?
Yeah, it was. I mean, we kind of thought it would be our last season. OG Randos had been around since day one. Me, Submo, Jester, Ziggy were 4 that had been around since day one of comp, really. Me, Submo, Ziggy were day one Randalorians. Obviously, Brandon and Vix came in later. But yeah, it was a very tough season, and the finals were great because we kind of, it was a whole load of us in a VC. It was a lot of Baywatch members and OG Rando members, and we were like, yeah, just play whoever on this, match. I think we got No Bear in, we got Speed in, I think we had Sitka.
Fenkar flew B-Wing.
Dot, yeah, Fenkar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was a good point. So, we hadn't practiced the B-Wing strat at all, and Fenkar, like, the minute before was like, let me fly B-Wing in the SEL final, and I was like, yeah, sure. So that was pretty risky. So we did the B-Wing, and then 2 games later when we were NR again, it was like, yeah, shall we try 3 ICT B-Wing? And we were like, yeah, why not?
That was huge. See, I feel like you guys kind of brought in a lot of ICT stuff along the way, if I'm not mistaken, too.
Yeah, season 2 of SCL, we brought in 3 ICT against IG.
Yes.
And there's, the funny thing about that is in like the hour before that semi-final, we played IG in ladder on Farstar Haven, which was the same map, and that was and we brought out the 3 ICT then, the first time we ever tried it, and it worked in their ladder game. So we did it again in the SCL semi-final, and it worked.
That's amazing.
And I remember talking to Luma, and he was like, he said to his team, like, we've just played randos on Fostar, and they were NR, and they did 3 ICT, and we lost. He was like, choose NR, don't choose Empire. But his team was like, no, choose Empire, because you have to choose Empire.
Yeah.
And he got so mad. He was like, it's literally a sign from God. You know what they're going to play.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, it paid off big time. I mean, there's the right call. I mean, and no one, I think a big thing too is like people just weren't seeing that heavy ICT pressure, so they didn't know how to avoid it. People didn't know how to get like low and just so it totally worked out for you guys. That's such a great call.
Because obviously at the time, IG was like super heavy reliant on Narcissus to get the tractor beam. You know, and in a Reaper, if there's 3 supports, 3 ICTs, so you can't stick around, you know, you've got to run away, basically, and that didn't fit with their playstyle. And at the time, Hod and Dynasty hadn't practiced TIE Fighter, so they were stuck in Defenders.
Jeez,
And they didn't change out of Defenders that entire game, and I've seen VODs where they couldn't do anything, because they spent the whole time spinning trying to regain shields.
Oh, yeah.
And... you know, ICT is easy to counter. It's, you know, you have to play around it. You have to play TIE fighters or bombers, and the support has to stay more back. But if you don't counter it, it can just ruin you.
Yeah, especially at that point when teams were just, well, I mean, I guess they kind of had an idea, but they didn't adjust enough. Now we're lumically we knew, but yeah, that's hilarious.
The 3 bombers had been used multiple times. I think Splinter started using it, but I just don't think it had been like maximized. Yeah, CAG, sorry.
They were both using
I just don't think teams like figures out how much like 3 of them could do if you like targeted the right people. You know, you had your PK, you had your support finishing it off, especially against defenders and, you know, stuff like that, and people that weren't, you know, fully aware of how powerful it could be.
Yeah, I mean, it was very reliant on the support, because at the time I was support, and I mean, I started sort of PK flex, but then I transitioned to support, and we did this ICT strat, and with the support with my iron lasers, is I could basically just see, you know, this person's 3/4 ICT'd, you just shoot iron lasers at them and disable them, and you'd be just a PK support, basically, just hunting these people down, and then you'd have an X-Wing buddy just come in and actually shoot them with real lasers, which I think is a difference, because just 3 ICT alone, you can be disruptive, but it doesn't really lead to much a lot of the time. Whereas if you've got someone going around disabling you, and then someone who's working with that person to kill you, you can get a lot of pressure on people.
And you're totally right, because I remember CA Gold running like 3 bombers for a bit, but then they kind of like, after the Cal Cup final, they were done. And Splinter was running it a little bit. Again, triple bomber, I remember like they had one dropping bombs on the Raider. I can't remember which one. I remember one tournament they were running that. But then, okay, so those teams kind of go away, and then, you know, sort of CT, randos are gone, sort of, you know, you're getting Fenkar in. There's kind of this like collection of talent that kind of happens there sort of post Cal Cup, and then kind of sort of how then you guys, I feel like, really maximized this 3 bomber. So would you guys want to talk about how that kind of came about over that season, over the last little whiles? What your thoughts are? No Bear, fame shouting out No Bear there, and Cheese, I should mention.
It was actually a really funny series of events. Just kind of going from, let's see, Baywatch brought in CTX guys first, which was What's Up Doc, Sitka, Speed of Light, and Beach 89. And basically what happened was that Baywatch players, I don't remember which tournament it was, where a lot of our players kind of had to take a step back. They had some real life stuff going on. Let's see, I think it was Shub and Yalia, who kind of, you know, they needed to take a step away. We were, you know, short on players. So I think it was, I can't remember if it was Fame Plane or Six, that reached out to, you know, CTX guys and were just like, hey, you know, we noticed that you guys, you know, you don't play in competitions anymore. Like, we don't see you at tournaments when, you know, we used to. And we're just wondering if, you know, you want to join forces to see if we can, you know, just see how it goes, see if, you know, we mend well. And yeah, I mean, like, we got along very well immediately, and it wasn't too hard to, you know, kind of merge our strategies. And it was actually a really huge benefit to us, because one of the weaknesses of Baywatch at the time was our PK pressure. And bringing in Sitka, Speed, and What's Up Doc in basically their iconic ships really was a huge benefit for our defenses. And, that's basically how that story goes. And they've been kind enough to stick with us ever since. And then before the Cal Cup Championship, we were kind of just like thinking of team members and everything. There was a lot of roster changes going on from like Splinter to Savrip to any of the gray teams, whatever. And, it was actually Six. At first he kind of did it as a joke, but like, he basically reached out to Fenkar, who we hadn't seen in, many tournaments nobody had seen. And, he kind of just, I wonder if I still have the original message. I'm sure he does, but it was basically along the lines of, hey man, like, I know you're retired and whatnot, but, why don't you just complete the circle, join randos, like you got nothing to lose kind of sort of deal. And, he just put himself out there, and Fenkar was like, yeah, that sounds like a ton of fun. And Six, of course, was like, wait, really? So when that kind of happened, and that's kind of what got the gears moving as far as like, then, No Bear came along with that, and Nop as well, which was like, everybody was just so excited that, they were willing to take a shot. And, I think they found a really good home in the Randalorians when, Splinter was kind of dissolving and going their separate ways. They were still able to find a family that accepted them, embraced them, and we kind of were, we definitely bolstered our ranks because of that for sure.
I feel like it seems kind of like the perfect fit for everyone, because I think people's like the commitment level is different for everyone, right? Whereas like, so you can have 15 people because not everyone is playing every day. Did it give you guys like in-house scrim chances too? Are you guys doing 5v5s?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a huge luxury. Yeah, it was a big luxury of Baywatch. As everybody knows, notoriously, Baywatch has just an infinite amount of people on their roster at all times. But the great thing about that was, when the Randalorians were still around, they could help us with in-house scrims, and we could have really high-level scrims together and not have to, reveal anything to other teams. And when Baywatch's roster really grew in size, that allowed people to have a lot more work-life, so to speak, balance. They didn't have to attend to every single practice. They didn't have to be at every single match or anything. So that really, kind of eased the stress as far as, the players that were available that could fill multiple slots.
I think it increased the longevity of the team and randos. And like, I think a big drain is if you have to turn up practice twice a week, you have to play 2 games a week, or you have to play an SEL every week. It gets draining and it gets tiring. But once you've got a huge team and you don't have to play SEL every week and you can miss a practice here or there, it's not as much of a drain, and you can actually enjoy it because if you have to play 3 times a week, it's no longer really a hobby. It's kind of like a chore,
Oh, I try to keep the thing like, Orange Squadron works around our schedule, not not the other way. We shouldn't try to it's a video game, it's as far as like, serious as we all take it, and that's quote unquote pro level at this game, it's a different thing. It's still like it feels more like a rec league level, highest level of this game, but it's super fun.
I mean,
ideal.
That's what Rando's best guard policy always was we just practice when we're on, like someone will go in VC and then eventually over half an hour more people will join, we'll get a 5-stack and we'll practice. It's never like, oh, you have to be here at this time, because then it's just like work basically, and who wants to work again?
Yeah, well, I guess I do nerd it out actually a bit. Then I do set time, so I can't say I make it a little bit work, but dealing with people all over the world makes it kind of necessary. Otherwise, it's just
time zones are pretty rough.
Yeah. I mean, you guys kind of have that a bit but you're mostly North American, I think, from what I understand.
I think it's just me now. I think that's UK. We had 2 UK players, me and Ziggy, but Ziggy's retired now, and then Everyone else is North American. You got Vix in Mexico, got a few in Canada, and then Americans.
Oh yeah, Hobbs made a comment in the chat there that you guys totally rekindled Fenkar's passion for the game again. He started making YouTube videos again. It's like, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I think so. I think he kind of felt like a freedom in randos. Disco might agree. Is like we could just do whatever we wanted. Like my SCL final example, where he was like, "Can I play B-Wing?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, it's the final. What will go wrong?"
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Before I was even in the Randalorians, I remember it was like, I think I was watching Submo's stream before a tournament match, and the first thing I heard from Submo is just like, "Hey man, the number one things in Randalorians is you do you, all right?" And we're very open to different strategies, different builds. So yes, I do agree that it really gave Fenkar some freedom to kind of just play around in this sandbox and experiment as to like what works, what doesn't work, like different strategies, different approaches, and of course as other people got better, they also brought to the table different routes that you can take to be successful. For example, Scribbler with his Plasburst kind of loops and everything. It's really great to see as far as when people bring something fresh and that you can kind of build around and see what works. So yeah, we're happy that Fenkar is very vocal in our server.
I know that because we have Sinric on our team as well. He has also been doing this Plasburst orbits like Scribbler for so long. So he same thought, and they're right. Those guys are right up there. And I've mentioned to Alex before too that Plasburst X-wing in the Twin Suns damage race. That was the one that went the fastest. The Plasburst X-wing is in some ways the undiscovered ship still. I don't feel like it's being fully utilized in the game because its damage output is crazy.
Yeah, it is a very high damage output, and it's very hard to kill because you're so close, doing such tight loops. No one can really lock onto you and get the dunk and get the shot. It's a very evasive ship.
They shouldn't anyway. You should be able to avoid it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the answer to the TIE bomber that's kind of not been explored fully yet. That's my wild time bomb thought. One thing actually before I want to talk about too, Brandon, I realized we kind of talked about you going from Baywatch or from Randos to Baywatch, but how did you get into Randos? How did you start playing the game and end up in Randos? I never really asked you that.
So I started out as a PK main, mostly flew A-Wing and Interceptor, flew for Shrapnel and Op-Ace 1, and then I ended up going to Space Whales for SCL Season 1, and ended up needing more damage because A-Wing and Interceptor don't do a lot of damage, so switched to X-Wing and Defender. And then actually towards the end of SCL, we lost a couple players, so I switched to Y-Wing, started farming more, and just kind of stuck with that ever since. Since then, I flew for a couple other teams. I flew for 6 teams before I got with Randos, but once I've joined Randos, haven't really looked back since.
Nice. Yeah, it feels like like we're talking about the game, like we are kind of pushing it forward with the mods too to find new new meta and where the game's going. But I feel like in the quote unquote vanilla settings of the game, like Randos, Baywatch, you guys have always been pushing that meta. I wonder if it's like the in-house practice. Like there's like sorry, go ahead.
I think it's a lot of just we don't want to stick to just a plain old meta. We want to find ways to improve. It's how can we get more damage? How can we make this thing more efficient? What can we do? I remember triple TIE bomber we did that before CAG, and we messed CAG up in one game with it totally, like almost one-phased them, and then they did it after, and then Baywatch has then gone on, and with the Fenkar we brought in the B-Wing in SCL Season 2 final. I know
you guys triple Y-Wing too, honestly, like there's a lot to be said for that.
That's pretty new, the triple wiring, and it's very good to see that the meta is still evolving. You know, even in the season 4 final, we saw 3 Y-wings, 3 bombers. We've seen B-wings. We've seen, you know, Protorps with Y-wings, Protorps with TIE bombers. You see all different things, and it has been a bit of a resurgence.
Yeah, so I like, we could, I mean, I'm torn about the mods. There's things I enjoy about them, things I don't, but I just like that the game is evolving both with the mods and without them. I think that's kind of cool that it's gone both ways. Well, what are you guys seeing for the future for Baywatch and Randos? Randos Baywatch, I guess.
That's a really good question. I mean, we will continue to play as long as our members enjoy playing with each other. That's really it. And you know, it's a really great group of guys, not just in Baywatch, but just Randalorians as a whole. We're a really supportive organization of not just the people within the teams, but also, you know, the community itself. And I think a lot of the changes that have happened from our strategies, you know, came from all just the great pilots that we have access to, as far as, you know, like, you know, members from Splinter coming in, members from OG Randos, you know, still being around and, you know, talking about their opinions and everything. So, I mean, the future is, I would say the future is bright. I mean, the guys love fooling around with one another. They love, you know, playing the game with each other, and, you know, they really like the competition. So I think, I don't know about OG Randos. I would love to see the Randalorian flag fly again. But as far as Baywatch is concerned, you know, we'll be around just to, you know, see how it all plays out.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to the future. I mean, we gotta take one game off of you guys at some point in the future. I know we can do it, so we're working towards that. Thank you guys.
I fully confident you will be able to.
Oh, yeah, Orange Squadron is improving a lot. It's you know, you guys have come through strong recently.
I mean, it's funny too, because like
There's-
literally the first team we ever scrimmed against was Randalorians before the first Cal Cup.
Yeah,
Like, it's so funny.
remember.
Like, we've been around a long time too. Slow progress.
Yeah.
Progress. Thank you guys.
And it's always been so close. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I just love playing the game. I love the competition. It's fun. I think Elite this year is going to be super competitive in SCL. As competitive as it's ever been. So I know everyone's getting ready, and we're excited to see what the mods will be and changes moving forward. So thank you guys for being on the podcast. Why don't you guys all, let's give shout outs to socials or anything like that. I know, Brandon, you stream too. Why don't you give your stuff out?
Yeah. I stream at twitch.tv/BrandonS101. Thank you for having me, Tom Bomb. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Oh, it's great to have you guys on. Disco?
Yeah, I stream under Disco Dino on a very rare occasion, but I mean, if you're around, feel free to swing by. It'd be great to talk to you. But yeah, thanks again for having me, Time Bomb. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And Alex, I don't know if I've ever seen you stream. Maybe you do.
I have streamed once. Unfortunately, my internet. I live at my mum's because I'm still young. Well, not that young, but you know, working from home, so there's no point getting my own place.
Yeah,
cry every
no
time.
explanations needed.
Yeah. So she pays for internet, and she doesn't pay for very good internet. So my internet is pretty rough. So I don't stream that much. But I streamed once. I might stream again in future when I get better internet.
So throw your.
I'll
throw your
always be on the
Twitch.
comp
Yeah.
scene.
What's your Twitch then? I'll throw it in below too.
Rando_Alex,
There we go. So
I believe.
I'll throw all those Twitch links in there. And guys, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you everybody for checking it out. And we'll catch you next time on the Star Wars
517
Squadrons
scanner control. 517 scanner control.